it was actually hail coming down, and people started walking out of the hotel, looking up, going, "What, hail?" And I was like, "Really?" It was
Rain
snowing
is
on the
not
beach.
that common in Cape Town.
It was not. No, it was actually snow on the beach. So it was really cold.
Mm.
It's quite interesting. Flavia, are you still here?
Yes, I'm here.
Good to see you as well.
Can you hear me?
Sure, I can. I can. How is it in Norway?
Very good. Now it's spring, so beautiful scenario and many flowers, nice views, and a bit cold, as always.
So for once in Belgium, it is better weather.
That's
than it
true,
is
because there in
in
Belgium
in
it's
the other
always so
regions.
bad.
That's amazing. That's actually pretty good. It's actually pretty good.
Yeah,
Yeah. It looks like we're already live on YouTube, so it's gonna.
I think we are.
we are.
Yeah, let's wait a couple minutes for people to join, because I think there was an invite that went out for 4, and then we can actually jump into the conversations there. So how about travel inside of South Africa, Thomas? How does that work? Can you do
No, we still have interprovincial travel ban, which means I cannot go to Cape Town. I cannot go to the neighboring province. Hopefully they will lift that in the coming months, because, well, cigar rollout for one, if you want to go and train the breweries, we need to be able to travel around. So, so our plan is such that we do the local breweries first because of the interprovincial travel ban.
Yeah, and that's driving then? Is that local, do you mean? Because local...
Yeah. So in this province, we can drive. Well, no, Cape Town is quite far. So there we would fly, and Ibai, we flew. Not everything is car distance.
Different in Belgium.
Thomas,
go ahead.
So I think that we are ready to go. I guess that everyone is ready.
There's still 2 minutes
welcome,
to go.
Thomas.
Thank you.
We are live now.
Awesome. We're live. Great. Oh, by the way, to finish that thought, Thomas, if you drive more without traffic than 2 hours in Belgium, you probably have left Belgium. So it's a different geo.
I've been there.
Absolutely. All right. Great. So, well, let's give it another minute for people to join. And people are joining. We're actually on YouTube. This is my first time on YouTube. So yay on YouTube.
Mine too.
You're too as well, Thomas. Are you?
Yes.
Are you a famous
first time? No.
Which is fun, because COVID is making us, kind of go into these ventures and these things we're not used to doing, right?
That's true.
That's right.
Yeah. So this is really a nice thing to do, and I think it's a nice format that otherwise you would have these marketing related things and recorded webinars, and here we're going to actually have a conversation where the world can log in and learn. So I'm really excited about it. See what is happening there. So awesome. All right. Well, it's on the dot 4 now, so let's get started. Like we said, everybody joining us on YouTube and Zoom, bear with us. This is our first time, definitely mine, and for the company as well. We're venturing out to a bit of a new technology branch, YouTube and Zoom Live, to kind of bring you this chat. Due to the COVID, you might have heard of it. It's a global thing that's happening, and so bear with us. Any technical issues, or maybe this might be as smooth as you see other things on YouTube, but we're trying to do something here. So, welcome everybody. Welcome to the stream with Siga and ABInBev here today. So we're hoping to have a bit of an interactive chat with Thomas here as well, about the experiences that ABInBev had in maintenance, challenges they faced before and through the digitalization and moving up the maintenance curve, and actually what led them to choose Siga Mobile EAM along the way. So it's going to be very open. We're just going to talk a bit through what that was like. What were the things that you came across? What were the things you might not have expected? How do you approach certain things? And we really hope that you learn something from it, you have some takeaways from it, or you might be thinking yourself about such projects or digitization. So all the better. So my name is Val Hillebrand. I am the regional director here for EMEA for SIGA, and I'm joined by Flavia Costa. Flavia is the project manager at SIGA that was responsible for SIGA mobile implementation, not only for South Africa, where Thomas is actually joining us from, but also for China, as well as in Europe. And well, first of all, before we continue, huge thanks to Thomas and Sheridan joining us here from ABInBev in this live stream for making the time and your willingness to share with the world what you've seen so far. Housekeeping question issues. If you have any questions or you want to interact or you just have something to say, feel free to do so. We have the chats open. People are monitoring them. If we're in a bit of a conversation, we might park them for a bit and we'll address them after the conversation. Maybe we'll reach out to you later. If it really is on point what we're talking about, we'll forward it to Flavia, who will be pinging us and seeing if we can answer them as well. So, Thomas, I cannot imagine that there's anybody here today that has not heard of ABInBev, right? in general, but ABInBev, obviously everybody knows the beers, but maybe if you can shortly just introduce yourself and just company ABInBev, because it's so massive, right? There's a lot to
Absolutely. Say. Sure. So hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Androdi. I am project manager for the SIGA mobile maintenance implementation in South Africa. I have got a long experience with the South African breweries, in fact, 25 years. I started with them in 1994. Since then, I've been very fortunate to have had some global exposure. So I've spent some years in Hungary, Czech Republic, and the UK, mainly in plant maintenance related projects. So that's my background. And it's also why I'm thrilled to be participating in this SIGA implementation. So as Val said, let me give you some background of our company. We are about 800 years old with very humble beginnings in the Belgian abbeys, where the monks were brewing beer like Leffe. You might have heard of it. And now we are a multinational brewing company and probably the most profitable FMCG company in the world. So we operate in more than 50 countries, employing 170,000 people. We have more than 400 beer brands. So apart from the Leffe, which I just mentioned, the Belgian one, you probably know Budweiser, Corona, Stella Artois, and Beck's, just to name a few.
Yes.
You'll be interested to know that one of our breweries in the world is based in Wuhan in China, where I think Flavia has also worked.
Yes, Flavia, you worked there. You worked in Wuhan itself, didn't you?
Yes, and 2018 we started a project with ABI in China, and the base of the project for APAC was in Wuhan. So during 6 months we was running project there, and in another 9 cities in China. From there, Thomas, the most famous beer is Harbin. That was one of the factors that we also implemented mobile. Yeah. So it was a very nice experience because when all these things started regarding Wuhan, I just had left the city, and then I know the city for so long was interesting, and suddenly it was the epicenter of something in the world in all this crisis.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's a nice bridge as well, Thomas, before we kind of dive into your whole experiences, before and going to digitization and mobile. I think everybody would be also interesting to hear, obviously, if you have a plan in Wuhan, but just in generally this worldwide pandemic. How was the impact for ABInBev? Obviously, a lot of companies are impacted. Well, I think basically almost all of them are impacted. How did that affect you? How did that affect maintenance and specifically more your region, right? Because you are the region in Africa as well.
Yeah. So I think we were impacted very strongly by the pandemic, and it varied from country to country. But the unfortunate aspect in South Africa is the still ban on the sale of alcohol. So we'll go into this later on, but our lockdown started now almost 8 weeks ago. And at that point, there was a shutdown or a ban on the sale of cigarettes and alcohol. So for our industry, this is very unfortunate, as you can imagine. So I know that most countries in the world didn't have this. Fortunately, most countries in Africa don't have it. But a few countries, including South Africa, we've got this alcohol ban, which of course has strongly impacted our operation, with breweries having to close their operations and affecting our income at this stage.
Wow, that is well, it's unforeseen, right? I think in our generation and the past generations, an event like this. I mean, everybody has seen crises, but events like these where there's a ban or really a shutdown of certain industries is unforeseen. So, what did you guys do? I mean, you had to shut down the plants. You had this production running. You had this production standing. I know you did some great things with that as well for the community, which I think interesting to share, because I personally am
so let me share that. As you say, because we had all the beer in the cellars, fermented beer, and we couldn't package all of it, so we were making these hand sanitizers from the alcohol, and distributing it free of charge to the communities. I know we bottled several 100,000 hand sanitizers. From the plastic for crates, we were making PPE face masks also for the community. So yeah, we have not been, although our beer operation was at a standstill for a while, now it's starting to ramp up again very slowly, but we've not been idle, as you can imagine.
Well, I saw it on LinkedIn. I know you did it in Africa zone. I know it happened here in Europe where you were creating hand sanitizers. I think it's a great initiative, and I think it's so much fun for a company not just to shut down, but to say, all right, we're in this crisis. What are we going to do to help the community? Yeah. We have this production that we had. It's not profitable. What can we do to help the community? So thank you definitely for that. So all right.
Val, let me go back. So I kind of spoke about ABInBev as a global company. I need to talk also a little bit about the zone, the Africa zone that we are in. So the office here in Johannesburg is the zone office, of which I'm part. And the Africa zone, we operate in about 20 countries, and in fact, 14 countries and 28 breweries or manufacturing facilities. It's important to mention also that only 9 of these breweries, which are based in South Africa, run on SAP as their ERP. So it's upfront, it's important to mention that although the SIGA projects in ABInBev have been, like Flavia was saying, in China and in Europe, and I think in North America also starting. For us in the Africa zone, we are currently limited to South Africa because of the SAP ERP backend that we have that integrates so well with SIGA.
Yeah, that's good insight, and definitely looking at a global company. And I think we'll dive into that in a second on how you came to this project and how that works structurally within ABInBev. But that is good information as well. All right, well, I think everybody here is really interested, Thomas, to hear about your experiences and about the project and how you handled that. So maybe we can switch to that topic shortly. And perhaps just for everybody to really understand the entire story here, you can talk a bit about what was the before picture, like what were you doing historically to handle maintenance and work execution in the plants.
Okay, so we've got in South Africa, as I probably said, we have 7 breweries and 2 maltings plants, so 9 manufacturing facilities, which together make up 40% of the zone volume, or 29 million hectoliters per annum. So hectoliter is a brewing unit, which means 100 liters. So 29 million times 100 liters. You can imagine how many Olympic-sized swimming pools we fill every year, and that's just in the South African country. Answering your question, Val, about the maintenance. So we have been, and I think especially in the zone, not just South Africa, we have a very paper-based maintenance process. So let's just concentrate on South Africa where we are, and with SAP as our ERP system. What happens is that, as you will know, we have the daily preventive orders that is generated by SAP, and these are printed out, all hundreds of them per day, and then typically the maintenance controller would issue or distribute per artisan or technician the jobs that he needs to do for the day or for the shift on these papers. So what the guy would do is he would take his tools and his paper maintenance orders, go out into the plant, and in doing his maintenance, he would feed back by writing onto the paper the maintenance confirmation or confirming the work that he'd done. So at the end of the shift, all these papers are returned to the maintenance controller, and then data capture clerks would capture it back into SAP, typing from the handwritten papers into a system. So I can imagine this is not a hugely efficient way of doing it. Plus, there can be errors creeping in from the typing from the paper back into the system.
Yes.
Yeah, I can imagine handwritten piece of paper handed to a data capture clerk who wasn't in the field, trying to translate that and put that into SAP. That is really error prone. So
correct. And Val, also the environmental impact, because like I said, hundreds of sheets per day, probably 1,000 sheets per day, because some of the bigger breweries would generate so many more maintenance orders. So there's an environmental impact to that as well.
Yeah, I think in the LATAM zone, they saved 7.2 million sheets of paper by digitizing the workflow. So
it's also very time consuming, right, Thomas? Because they go to the field and then they have to go back and then go over and input the data on SAP by the end of the day, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and we did a recent kind of calculation because one of my pet peeves is printing. It's a fight I always lose. The thing never works, right? It doesn't work so in a professional office, but at home I always fight with the thing. But on how long it only takes to print a piece of paper. So not even talking about the efficiency loss in handing it out, going there, searching through the paper. And actually the time it takes just to wait for a printer, collect the papers is just it's something that you don't want to be doing these days, right? Especially with the whole COVID situation. You don't want to be transferring papers and going into an office using the same computer. So definitely there's a big improvement there. And I think many companies and even companies that might be joining here today are doing that still today, or have been doing that in the past and looking to get away from that. So that's the whole digitization industry 4.0 movement that's going on. So it was clear, Thomas, that ABInBev wanted to change that and wanted to improve on that. So maybe tell us a bit, how did digitization and then mobile EAM come on the table then? What sparked the project? What sparked the initiative?
So there was a global transformation initiative, which was around the whole connected brewery, smart brewery, Internet of Things, and part of this was the mobile brewery. And we, in the zone in South Africa particularly, we piggybacked on this global transformation initiative. And this is how we came upon the SIGA solution, the mobile maintenance solution, as part of the mobile brewery initiative.
Yeah, so from global, and for the people joining here, so ABInBev globally is a partner of SIGA. We've installed and implemented in other sites for a couple of years now. South Africa was one of the later ones in that train to come on board. So they actually had the advantage of already having the tools available from Global to start working with that, or sorts of having that brought to them. How did that tie into the improvement that you were looking to do in maintenance? So I can assume you have that global tech project going, and you have these tools that are presented, but you would also have your local improvements and your ROIs that you wanted to achieve. What were kind of the key matching points there for you?
All right, so the maintenance is a very large component of OPEX, or the operating expenditure. So everything we can save there impacts hugely on the OPEX budget, right? So apart from the costs, where cost saving, the time that we spoke about, there's also the accuracy of the maintenance that is done or that is performed. And you can imagine the other important aspect of maintenance is plant safety, because out there we have a lot of moving parts and moving machinery. Maintenance just ensures that we're able to work in a safer work environment. And again, I think the efficiency that the mobile maintenance will bring with it will also impact on the improvements around safety. And thirdly, the productivity, Val. So in doing the maintenance more accurately, we can reduce the downtimes and up the production hours, the running hours of the plant.
Yeah, and to the safety point, I think it's often overlooked when companies make these ROIs and they're all looking at the production time and the efficiency. But it's such a big key factor, because having the right documents, ensuring lockout, tagout, and all the procedures are met digitally and easily is one. But also, if you have people working in a planned environment with well-planned work orders, a planned site is a lot safer than a reactive and a hectic site. And there's actually quite a bit of reliability studies and safety studies on that. So I think it's a key part. It's hard to quantify in dollars, but it's ever so important to focus on. Right. So we met in beginning of 2019 in Johannesburg. We sat together.
That's right. In April, I remember well.
Yeah.
You guys came to visit.
Really pleasant. It was really good. We started the project. Flavia, maybe if you can run us a bit on the methodology that we took here on the project and how we approach this together with Thomas. If you guys can talk a bit about how did you approach this? What was your methodologies, and how did you attack these plans one by one?
So before we have everything started there, we conducted some meetings to check technically what we have to do before we even set up a kickoff meeting, right, Thomas? So
yep.
We went to see how the SAP instance was, and then we run one checklist to see everything that Thomas needs to provide. And then I assisted him on get all the information with the teams from his basis team and our basis team. After that, we set up a kickoff meeting where from there, we start the project. The project was based on as is, and then Thomas can say to us how it was from his perspective. It was very smooth. This is one project that I'm very proud to run, because was one project that we ran so fast. The implementation was so nice. Everyone in the factory there in South Africa was so happy on having this project that was one innovation to their breweries. So this is how we approached it from the beginning. Can you share with us how it was for you, Thomas?
Yeah, so I think it must be said, Flavia, that what counted for us in terms of the technical installation and the whole rollout planning is that we got a single SAP instance in South Africa. And the SAP instance is for plant maintenance anyway, the PM module, it's fairly standard. Okay, so we were able to install a fairly standard core SIGA into a fairly standard core SAP PM, which definitely helped in terms of time and effort.
Yes, and with this approach, we have a standard application running there. And the nice point is that we was able to show them how would be the process using our application. They were open to see how to work with our tool. So from there, we made this map between process and tool. And then we start to train the trainers, and the leadership there was responsible to come to the training with our consultant in local.
Before, Flavia, if I may interrupt, and we're doing this interactive, yeah. I may.
Yeah.
I think it's good to dive this up because I think the training aspect and how this training was approached is really interesting. So I want to put on that. But before we do that, I think it's always great not only to share what went great and flowers and fun and rollout went smooth, but in any IT project, realistic IT project, there is hiccups and there's speed bumps to get across and things you might have not foreseen or thought about when you started. And I think those are great lessons for the people attending here today as well, to say, well, what are the things, what are the heads up you can give to people? The things that you might have thought about in the beginning that came back and that you had to put some attention on. Maybe you can share a bit about that as well, Thomas.
Yeah, sure. I've got two things in mind. One is technical and the other one concerns more the change management. So technically, the pilot site that we selected, we found after go live actually that the whole Wi-Fi connectivity was not ideal. So there was a little bit of frustration during training and in the initial parts of go live with the technicians on their handset, on their device, not being able to receive the orders and to sync their device with the backend SAP, and it all had to do with a good Wi-Fi signal. So, in fact, and I have to say this, that SIGA works perfectly well offline. Okay, so you have parts in the plant which are very remote that the guys need to maintain. We don't expect to have Wi-Fi coverage everywhere, but it is crucial to have good Wi-Fi coverage at the central positions where you're running your training, where your planners are dispatching the orders to the devices. And in fact, shortly after go live, we installed some additional access points in the brewery to improve the situation. So that's the technical part of it. The other one is, we'll get to the training in a minute. We have got a very good core of what we call super users that went through intensive training and were very much part of the change management, as you can imagine, not just the training, but the whole go live and support. However, what we did find with Sheridan is that it's also imperative, and this is not any news, is we have to involve the higher level organization into each rollout as well. The maintenance managers, the manufacturing systems managers, even up to plant manager, has to be deeply involved with what we're doing and to provide support for the implementation.
Yeah, 100%. We always put so much focus on the rollout because you can have the best solution in the world, with the best process and technically working, but if the end user is not expecting it or is not wanting to put the time into it or has other things on their mind, then the project is at risk. So really,
yes,
having that involvement from the people and also the management's involvement and their wish to succeed is a key component. And on the Wi-Fi part is so true. It's such a great pointer. Even though you can work offline for weeks or months if you want to, there is no magic, right? If you want to send a new work order to a device, you must have some form of connectivity. This is true for any mobile device and any app in the world, and it also is for ours. So making sure that you have it on a certain location where people know I can sync, or in the morning the device is synced, is really good best practice.
Yes, you're right, Val. But the good point is that even for factories that does not have connectivity all over the factory, they are able to start to run it, just making a good coordination. And as Thomas said, putting this on the central area where the technicians can make their routine. And then, as we said, for when we think about change management, we have to prepare all this and get ready to all the things that is not going to work. And then we can create a plan where you explain to the technicians, look, you go to the field, you will work offline, but he go there in the beginning of the day, and then he download the orders, and then go to the field, and then execute all his work. And then by the end of the day, he just have to go back to dispatch everything. And then it make possible to everyone that even don't have a big infrastructure ready, right?
Absolutely. Before we leave to the training part, one question I know that comes every time in every meeting, and there's many schools of thought, is device, right? Device size, mini tablets, phones. I know there was a bit of a switch at ABInBev as well. So could you share with us what device you selected and how that was received, and maybe the pros and cons of that as well? Yeah.
All right. So the device that we selected is a Samsung Galaxy Active 2 mini tablet. So it's an 8-inch mini tablet, fairly new on the market. One condition, of course, was that it needed to be SIGA certified, which it turned out to be. So even though it's a very new device on the market, it was SIGA certified, works perfectly well with SIGA. Having said that, SIGA works just as well on a normal mobile phone. And we have a few instances where our application is installed on a mobile phone, and it works perfectly well. So I suppose the one reason why we chose the mini tablet, which still fits into one hand quite easily, was that in the future, we got a concurrent mobile brewery project called dynamic SOPs, or dynamic standard operating procedures, which are going on to a web-based repository, and the procedures. So just imagine the technician that goes into the field with a maintenance order from SAP. For him to confirm that job, it could be quite technical, and maybe the chap hasn't got the years of experience as some of his colleagues have. So we have these work instructions to be able to complete each job, and it goes hand in hand with the maintenance order. So for now, because we've got this dual mobile project, one on the maintenance side and the other one on the documentation side, the technician is able to retrieve the work instruction for his task from this web-based global repository. And I think this is where the mini tablets come in very handy, because now photographs, drawings, even videos are much better to view on a mini tablet than on a small mobile phone.
Yeah, there's always a trade-off in. Sorry, go ahead, Flavia.
And how the technicians react when you told them that they're going to use a mini tablet and not a small mobile phone? Because I know that some of them cannot like to have to carry it around.
Yeah. I think most of them were very happy with it because of the larger screen and because of the better readability and resolution of the screen. But by the way, we're also looking to give out pouches, like a apron type of format, so that because it doesn't fit easily into the pocket, then while he's working with both hands with tools, he can easily put the device into some pouch on his body. Having said that,
it's very great initiative as well to keep the hands free for maintenance activity.
Yeah. There are some artisans that have already indicated that they'd prefer to have SIGA on their mobile phones, and that's perfectly okay with us. So because I said that it works just as well on a mobile phone, maybe not as well for reading detailed work instructions.
Yeah, for people joining us, SIGA works on iOS, Android, Windows 10, tablet, phablet, phone, small, big, size. So it doesn't really matter. It really comes into the preferences, and you can see in an example like that it really is a personal thing. I'm an Android guy. My vice president here at Sega is a big iOS fan. He's trying to convince me it's never going to work, but it shouldn't be forced upon by the software, right? You should be able to choose what you're comfortable with, because in the end that will drive user adoption, and the goal is to do better and easier maintenance and more effective digitally, and not so much technology. So really is an enabler. That's great stuff. All right, just looking at the time, maybe we should jump into training approach. So technically,
yep.
It was installed, it was configured, you went over the blueprint, you have your device. How did you approach the initial site and the rollout? What was your plan?
At the same time that we did the design workshop and the configuration, at the end of that, we because we had the SIGA resource visiting us, we did the train the trainer, which was a 4-day or 5-day quite intensive course. And we invited to this train the trainer 2 people from each of our manufacturing sites. So at the end of this, now we have 18 very competent and very handy SIGA resources with good knowledge. Now, when we went, so that was in November last year, and we had our pilot go live at Ibai Brewery, which is a coastal brewery, in February. And our kind of thought was to, rather than send the 2 Ibai Brewery people back to do the training, we sent all the trainers. So, because you can imagine in a plant where you were running shifts and day shift and night shift, we got artisans coming and going off and on shift. So our whole training approach was that we were able to cover the technicians training in a fairly short amount of time, because we had all these supporting trainers at the pilot site. So within a few days of the first week, we were able to train all, I think in Ibai it was something like 70 technicians, and then we were able to go live. And then, so that was in February, and in March we went to Cape Town for our second site. And again, we had the traveling super users going down and giving their training and their whole change management across to the second site.
Yeah, I love that.
It has to be said that this is, I think it worked really well.
Yeah, just
now,
it's 5 days of training.
Sorry, Flavia.
Guys, quickly, just just to let you know, we have over 200
we have a question here,
and we have a question as well. I wanted to say that, from JP.
Yeah, so go ahead, Val. You can say that.
Question from JP, Thomas. What percentage of technicians actually chose a tablet over a phone size? Do you have some sort of metric on that?
Yeah, so the vast majority went with a tablet. I think it was a novelty. As I said, it's new on the market. So they took accountability during the training, or at the beginning of the training, we handed out the tablets, which they all signed for. So percentage-wise, maybe 5% of the people are preferring to stay with their mobile phones. That doesn't mean to say that as the novelty of receiving this new device wears off, maybe more will want to remain with their phones because it's smaller and it fits into the pocket and so on. On the other side of the coin, when we start really utilizing the work instructions, I think that will show the advantage of the tablet over the phone.
Yeah, another question from John here on devices is, how well did they hold up in a factory environment so far?
Okay, so far we've got no issues. I don't know of any that has been damaged. They don't come, the Samsung Active 2 has got its own cover, but it's not a industrial kind of shock-proof cover that you see on some devices. And I think it will not protect it 100%. Now remember, we've only gone live in February. So it's not a long time that we have been using these tablets, but so far as far as I know, there's been no damage, and they've stood up
Yeah,
well.
and what I saw from other plants, because we had 11 factories previously from ABI, and they also was using tablets. And they like to use the tablets because it's much easier to read. But as you said, when the company provide the protection to the tablets, they go very well on the field. And then the technicians get it protected. And it can last for a long time.
Yeah, and I've seen great incentives at other companies where if you take care of it for 2 years and you don't break it, you can keep it, right? And there's many
Yeah.
different ways to drive people to really take ownership of this. And the big thing that I believe that works in the advantage of safeguarding these is if technicians see it as a help and not an admin burden, they will take care of it because they prefer to use it than to walk to the warehouse, walk to the planner scheduler, and get information. So that is key. All right, just looking at
We
time,
have
maybe
another
continue because it was
question
really
here.
interesting. Sure,
Okay.
Flavia.
Wonderful. We have another question here that is from William. Do you have KPIs to track the value?
Yeah, good question. Thanks for that. In terms of value or benefit or return on investment, we are too early in our go live to speak about that. But from the beginning, from day one of go live, what is very important is that you start tracking usage. So I'm not sure, I'm probably not approaching the question head on because in terms of value, we don't know yet. So we haven't done the dollars calculation. We still need to do some more implementations and months before we can do that. But if there's a question on how to measure usage, which we are doing, then I can definitely talk to that.
Yeah, and I think
one important
that might be a great. Sorry, I said that might be a
and
great
one important value.
separate session. Sorry, Flavia.
Yes,
I said
one
that
at a
might be a
time,
great
guys.
second. Yeah, that's why, because otherwise we're for a long time. But for anybody wanting to know, we're talking about the SAS, the African zone here at ABI, who was last in the training. We've done quite extensive KPI and ROI with the other zones, and they achieved a really large ROI in a matter of months, less than a year. So look it up. It's on our website. Feel free to download that paper as well. I want to keep on track here with the chat a bit and keep us there. But quick question, Thomas. So you were talking about training and the training and the key users being involved, especially when you went to the second site, which I believe was Newland. You started there. If I remember well, you improved the Wi-Fi. I said Wi-Fi like we do in Belgium, which is fun. No, it's Wi-Fi. You improved the Wi-Fi there as well, so you had less training issues there, correct?
Yeah, so the Wi-Fi setup in Newlands was when we got there better. And I think this could have contributed to a slightly higher usage measures in the second site compared to the first one. Unfortunately, it was during this go live on our second site that the lockdown happened, and we all had to come home and start working from home because, as I said in the beginning, shortly after that, the breweries also closed, and they're now starting to reopen. And again, we're starting to measure the usages of SIGA in the breweries.
Yeah. So you had in the middle of the rollout, pretty much you had the pandemic and the lockdown. What were you able to do during that time? So I can imagine it's quite hard. You cannot go to the sites. It's hard to train people.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is the
all right?
What is
so
the action you've taken?
Okay. So again, because we had this rollout plan, we have the rollout plan for 2020, which is to cover the implementation on all 9 of our manufacturing sites. So what we have been doing in these last few weeks is that we have prepared in the system all the additional sites that we would have done one by one as we were doing the rollout. Now we were able to, or we took the opportunity to enable all the all the users at all the subsequent sites. So remember, on some of these bigger sites, some run 5, 6 packaging lines, and they have 100 plus, 120 or 30 technicians. So all of these have to be created in the web application, because remember, you want to issue the maintenance orders per individual. So it cannot be a no-name user. So each user individually has to be created on the device. They have to be given the correct role, both in the training client and in the production client, because you first do the training and then you cut over, right, to your production system. So it is quite tedious work that we had to go through, but now we have completed all the setup and the system for our subsequent sites. And then post-lockdown, which is going to happen soon, we hope, we will be able to roll out to our intended breweries much faster.
Yeah, great action plan there, and great to see that things, despite a lockdown, ABInBev, bit through the bullet and kept working as much as they could from home and from the restrictions that they had to keep this going, and really committed to the project. So thank you for that from the Sega side. Quick question here from Hans, 2 questions. So does each user also need a SAP login? Great question. I can answer that. From the Sega side, no. Right, we can work with the integration user. That's not an issue. However, on the SAP side, you need to check your contract as well. We do recommend having a one-on-one, but that is something to look internally with your IT and SAP contract. It's depending on what data you bring back and forth as such. So, and the second question, which is for you, Thomas, is how much of the confirmations approximately did you see were registered percentage-wise on the mobile app?
Excellent question. And in fact, that is one of our usage measures that I talked about. So the first usage measure was how many of the daily work orders that SAP is generating are actually being dispatched to the device. Because remember, in the old ways of working, you can do it on paper and you don't need to use the device. So we had to look at what percentage of your daily jobs are being dispatched to the device. And then of those that are dispatched to the device, how many are being confirmed in the device. And so in the first brewery, we were hitting, the percentages were going up and are still going up, but initially around about 30% and then 40%. And in Newlands, it was even better, approaching 80% of confirmations using the SIGA device.
Great. It's very good numbers, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we went a
I
bit
have
over.
Another question.
Oh, go ahead. Sure.
Okay. So we have a question here that's going back to the device. It's from Matthew. He's asking, do the tablets have voice test capability? And another questions, are the technicians
what capability?
Their time? Voice to test.
Voice to test.
Yes, where they can give orders by voice and then transform it to test.
We haven't tried that. That is a very interesting question, because I know that we use the camera on the device extensively to take pictures of the situation in the plant. We have not used the voice recording yet on the device, but I'm sure it is, the capabilities there.
Okay, and just one last question here, Thomas. Are the technicians entering their time to work orders through the app?
Yes. Yeah, and that time confirmation syncs back into SAP, so that we can have a look at the duration of work that was spent on the task.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I have my my little neighbor. You want to be on TV?
I can see that.
On YouTube. It's not TV. I'm old. I say TV. All right. Well, thank you, Thomas, for this. I think it was a great sharing session. Thank you for everybody. Over 200 people joined to watch this today, so really excited about that. I hope everybody had some takeaways. If you have any questions, I saw some questions come by that might take a long time to respond. So if you have any questions that we couldn't answer, we'll reach out to you and do it that way.
Val, you were going to ask me about what brands we have in South Africa.
Exactly. I forgot that question.
So
what brands do you have?
I need to just show you guys, and I'm keeping it cold. This is Castle Light. So Castle is probably in South Africa our most well-known brand. And the other big one we have is the Black Label.
Cool.
So that is what we do when the breweries are functional and when sales are working.
Yeah, would be nice that you can come back to the normal soon.
Yeah,
right?
we're looking forward to that.
So you're going to send these my way, Thomas?
No.
You have Jupiler there.
We do. Stella Artois.
Yeah, that's a good, it's one of my favorites.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Thomas. Have a great day over there. Thank you, Flavia. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Val. Thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, guys. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.